On this episode of AVWeek, Belden is divorcing from Grass Valley, the importance of software developers in the AV industry, and reducing our AV waste. All that and more. Next on AVWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is AV Week, episode 429, recorded Friday, November 8th, 2019. Master of None.
Support for AVNation is brought to you by Atlas IED, innovative audio solutions for every business environment, and by Kramer, AV Beyond the Box.
This is AV Week, your weekly wrap-up of audio-visual news and information. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. With us to discuss the news and information that we have gathered for this week, first and foremost, my buddy and pal from the beautiful state of sunny California. Her name is Corey Schaefer from QSC. Welcome, ma'am.
Tim, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. And from the completely and utter opposite side of the country, Patrick Whipke, Director of USAV, somewhere in the Pennsylvania, New Jersey area.
That's right. Beautiful South Jersey, right outside of Philly. We're coast to coast today.
How you doing?
And Patrick was on a red eye, so he just landed a few hours ago.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
But he's here.
He is here, and God love him. And I was in New Orleans this week for AVEC, but I got back last night, so I was not doing a red eye. So God love you. All right, so let's hit this real quickly. And Meyer from our friends over at AV Network and SCN, Meyer Sound has updated their Compass software update to 4.6 from the article, quote unquote. The software and firmware upgrades in place. All existing Meyer Sound Galaxy processors will be immediately capable of upgrading to this new Milan certified devices. The Galaxy drivers actually and devices that are currently in the field and all future Galaxy processors will be shipped with this new Milan certified firmware. So Meyer is really going down the AVB, the AVNU Alliance Milan route with this update and with this upgrade. But I'm going to start with you two and kind of pivot a little bit on this. And Corey, we're going to start with you. You work with a audio manufacturer, QSC.
Audio, video, and control.
An entire ecosystem.
Yes.
But this is something that's interesting to me, and the reason why I wanted to start with this article. This is a audio manufacturer. All right, Meyer Sound. They make some really great speakers, and they make some really great stuff. Highlighting and doing so much is to put the effort and the power behind saying, hey, here's this new software update. 20 years ago, that would have never happened. It wasn't a thing, right? A software engineer working alongside you guys, working in QSC, working inside Meyer, working in whoever, working for Crestron. I don't care who, pick a person that's on the show floor at ISE in February. These people didn't have overtly software engineers for the general public. Yes, they had some software engineers to create their own specific programs, but nothing like this, right? Talk for a second about the importance of that evolution and how the software engineer has become an important and integral part in an AV manufacturer's employee base.
Well, we know obviously the trend, even in our industry, is really software based. I mean, our CEO spent a lot of time at this last InfoComm talking about software is king, and it's really driven by the customers. I mean, customers are looking for features and functionality to be delivered to them in a download, and so and these platforms are, every company's using the word ecosystem and platform, et cetera. And everybody is really focused on how can we come out better and faster and serve these customers really well over time. So, I mean, if you look at the QSC, site on positions that we're hiring, so much is software based, and it's everything is IT and software. people want the software to be able to deliver more versus having to buy another box to do that. And Meyer's working on IEEE standards. Really reading through that, we're really seeing, I think, a really exciting time in our industry, and hopefully we'll be able to attract a lot of young people away from these other companies that are doing video games and virtual reality, because we're able to do so many cool stuff, I think, in software. But software is definitely the trend and where it's at. More software, less hardware. Sure.
Patrick, when you're talking with your members, what are they able to do as far as, I'm not saying that the integrators should start hiring software developers, although I do know of a handful that do that very thing. But when they're talking with their suppliers and their folks and talking about the importance of getting engineers and getting designers on board with, okay, this is what this device does now or today, and getting their heads wrapped around the fact that could augment or that could evolve given the right software and or firmware update.
Yeah, I think Corey hit a little on the head with the consumers are the ones that are kind of pushing this a little bit, and I think it's because of what they have in their hands at all times. Yeah. You can go and download an app that does something that you could never do before, and I think that's what's really driving is the access to information and the ability to do things right in the palm of your hand. I think is really starting to drive our industry into the software model, and then obviously the AV managed services, software as a service. All of that is really a big play right now too. So that it's all tying into that different model as the industry is starting to evolve into not selling just boxes now, but we're selling services and software and softwares to augment those boxes. Yeah.
Corey, you and I were at a NSC Ignite event a couple months ago, back in May, I think. NSC Ignite is a program kind of spearheaded by our buddy Kelly Perkins, looking to get young people into the industry. And I want to
and offering scholarships and the like.
Yeah, absolutely. Something you said though is this move to software is possibly help attract people, attract young people to the industry. This month, this 2 months, AV Magazine, who we do some work with over in the UK, they have their cover story is that the AV industry is at a breaking point when it comes to staffing and getting folks interested in the industry. For a long time, pick an organization, whether it's a VIXA or NSCA or CDA or whoever, folks that are concerned with getting the next generation and younger folks involved have kind of leveraged the coolness of AV, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, go to Universal, go to Disney, go to a rock concert. You can do this, right? This is something, this is what we do. Is it time for us to augment our pitch to the young people and say, yes, absolutely, that's still some cool stuff that we do, but to get there, we need the software, right? So if the software is your thing, and if you would rather, code and do that, you're going to help us do the cool stuff too.
Probably so. It's time to shift because, just showing, the cool experience, the end result, it's not pulling them in, right? So I think two things. I think that reaching younger, doing an outreach for getting younger and younger in, talking about the software part of it. The other part is a lot of people want to work remotely. This is a great opportunity for remote workers as well. There are some companies being founded in the Bay Area that are 100% remote. This is a career opportunity that could be done remotely as well.
That actually is a huge point because, not to be silly, but George Tucker, our buddy George Tucker, he long time he worked for a long time for a company in New York area that did live staging and events. Okay. Yeah. Wallace Johnson, great live staging professional. You can't do that remotely, right? You can't.
Right.
Not to be stupid, but you
not
cannot
yet.
physically. Not yet. No, you can't physically, do a sound check remotely. But this you can, right? You can be involved in the AV industry and write some pretty wicked programs and do that remotely. So,
And if you're looking at bringing in youth to our industry, many of them want to work, they don't want the typical 8 to 5, 9 to 5. They want different hours too. I mean, this just seems like a great opportunity for our industry.
no, absolutely. All right. Our next story comes to us from our friends over at Sound and Communications. Belden is looking to divest themselves of Grass Valley. If you weren't aware, the company that owns Belden, Inc., it owns a lot of different things and some things that you may not be aware of. One of them is Grass Valley. Me being a former broadcast professional, I grew up with Grass Valley, right? Grass Valley was the standard for video switchers. And matter of fact, I would argue that if you went through a newsroom today, most of the time you're going to find a Grass Valley switcher. And they got into other things. They actually made cameras and some other video production stuff. But Belden is looking to divest themselves of that property, of that ownership. According to the article, quote unquote, John Stroop, the president and CEO of Belden, said, "We completed a rigorous strategic review of our portfolio of businesses, and today's announcement marks an important outcome. We concluded that it is in the best interest of our shareholders, customers, and employees to separate Grass Valley from Belden. This will enable Grass Valley to more effectively execute its strategic plan and pursue growth opportunities." Patrick, in an environment where we hear more about mergers and acquisitions than the opposite of mergers and acquisitions, what does this say about either the position of Belden, or maybe it's just the fact that they saw Grass Valley as not necessarily a good fit anymore for where they wanted to take that part of the company?
Yeah, I mean, it's a rarity to hear in our industry this day and age of someone cutting things as opposed to buying more. So it's interesting. It almost sounds to me that, speaking of software, that maybe some of the software and the studio light, if you will, companies are taking some more of that piece of the pie from Grass Valley, and it just wasn't as profitable as it was before. And that's just how I was reading into it. It might just be that they want to focus on the wire and cable. But I'm curious if this is going to start a new trend within the industry, because you have everything now. So I'm curious to see how all that pans out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Patrick, I read it a bit differently. I read it as I was reading it, I was kind of thinking about the ability to focus. And you I'm not really disagreeing. I'm actually agreeing with you. The fact that Belden wants to focus maybe in their core competencies. And I believe, and I've always believed this, if an organization gets too diverse, and you're not really able to focus, I mean, you can't be, the master of all. What's that phrase?
Jack of all, master of none.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, it could be that. So, and so I think it takes great courage actually to look at a whole organization, a whole company, and decide to cut that part out and to stay focused stay focused on where you're able to really grow and not worry about just the acquiring these companies or these lines because some people think diversity, if one market's down, the other one's going to lift you up, et cetera. But I've always been a firm believer that what you focus on grows. You focus on it improves.
There's an old saying about what gets inspected gets done, right?
Yeah.
And there is some honest wisdom there, because whatever it is that me as an employee, but also me as a company, if what we know we're going to keep tabs on, that's what we're going to do, right? That's what we know. If somebody's going to come behind me and check up if I'm doing A, B, or C, then I'm going to make sure that I'm doing A, B, and C, and then my focus is not going to be on the other stuff, on the ancillary stuff. As a company, I've got a responsibility to our employees, to the folks that support us, and honestly to our audience, to make sure that we're doing the things that we need to focus on. So doing something, that we don't need to be doing. Yeah, I can't even think of anything right off the top of my head, but that would take away from our focus. And I think this might be, one of those instances where Belden as a company is saying, okay, this is what we're doing, and that thing over there is kind of a distraction, maybe.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier, NSCA, Avixen, and Cedia, and at QSC, there's so many people that say, hey, we're using your products in home theater or whatever. You guys really ought to be at Cedia. And, it's just not a vertical, again, it comes down to focus and staying focused in the markets that we're in.
This is my 2 cents on I'm not going to tell you whether or not you need to go to Cedia. I don't have the business doing that. That actually leads to a different conversation, which I would love to have with several people at some point in time. And that's the rise of the resimercial, where you have traditional residential dealers who are getting into commercial, and they're discovering products and manufacturers that maybe they didn't realize were out there, or maybe they did, but didn't realize completely what they do. And then taking that back to the residential market going, oh my gosh, this is so much better than X, Y, and Z, what I was using previously, whether it's a DSP or it's an amplifier or speaker line, right?
Yeah,
I think you're seeing a lot of that.
That's a whole nother show too, though.
Another show.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that'll get me into all kinds of trouble. So going on, let's talk about trash then. That won't get me into trouble.
Let's talk trash.
Our buddies at Commercial Integrator actually put together a really good article about fighting waste in an industry. I'm just going to say this. If you've been on an AV job site, you've seen a lot of boxes, a lot of empty boxes, a lot of empty cardboard, plastic, junk, trash. It is trash. It's what folks that at wherever manufacturer packages their stuff in to make sure it gets to you safely, right? So it still works. But then you as the integrator, as the dealer, as the technology manager needed to deal with that trash. And Adam Frenzy from Commercial Integrator puts together his thoughts and his ideas on ways to reduce that. I am aware of a handful of manufacturers who do things like this. They try to reduce their waste, mainly because I've asked a handful. I haven't asked all of them. But Corey, we're going to start with you and QSC and what you guys are doing, but also the conversations that have to be had internally, but also with your customers about, hey, you know what? Here are some things. Yes, there's going to be some waste in our shipping, but here are some ideas to help you kind of reduce that waste, even once you get the product.
Yeah, so preparing for this, I actually dug into what we're doing at QSC, and I found out a lot actually by preparing for this. So, there's this fine balance of being able to ship equipment, and especially like we've just introduced some new subs, right? So these are hefty. They've got these casters on the bottom, et cetera. So you have to be able to provide packaging that protects these products when they go. But at QSC, we follow the 3 R's: the reduce, reuse, recycle. And then we also have a full green statement about things that we're doing as it relates to marketing and internally and the manufacturing process and just our energy consumption. And I can tell you that there are times when I walk into the building at QSC and I'm like, am I the only one here? Because there are no lights on, but it's just part of, the QSC way of just trying to do our little part, striving for sustainability. And, I was thinking about our comments earlier about programmers and how, software is growing. We want to get young people into our industry. Many people that are, graduating with degrees are looking at companies to join based on, their stance on the environment. And, so they're looking to understand what companies are doing in their community and, globally, and sustainability is an important one for them, I think.
No, and that right there is a really good point too. Patrick, same kind of question as you're talking to your dealers or you're talking to manufacturers that deal with your dealers. What are those conversations like in helping folks kind of reduce and eliminate some of the waste that actually comes from what we do?
Well, yeah, like I agree with Corey, because it's a fine balance, because, the manufacturers are trying to, save costs wherever they can. and crank these products out on an assembly line, but also, if an integrator has a big order that comes in, and if they can consolidate the packaging to make that one order go out with less boxes and less cardboard and less all of that, it's ideal, but it's not always the easiest, and it's not always the way the integrators want to handle it. I mean, it's hard enough getting integrators to register projects sometimes, let alone try and consolidate on shipping and handling and receiving. So I've experienced it firsthand when I used to be with the integrator. There was just cardboard and styrofoam everywhere when you had these big projects come in. So it was a challenge for sure, but it like I said, it's a delicate balance with the manufacturers, because they also have these products sitting on their shelves that they want to move, and they also want to protect them, like Corey said, getting them from point A to point B and not have damage, and because that just costs more money. So it really is a tough balance to find a way to reduce, recycle, reuse, but also stay, I don't want to use the word cheap, but cost conscious in shipping and that kind of stuff. So it really is a tough balance.
And the plastic, the amount of plastic used is, can be really disgusting, to be honest. And sometimes that's all done for organization. So you might put, your power supplies and these smaller cables in plastic, because you want to make sure that when things get unboxed, those don't get lost. And I think, a lot of us are not necessarily shipping, manuals and things like that, because everybody's online. So that's also helping. But if we could just start with reducing plastic, it'd be great.
And I think the plastic has, plastic came in and took over for styrofoam. It was a lot of styrofoam, and then it's like, all right, we got to stop using the styrofoam. Let's move to plastic and cardboard. And now there's just plastic and cardboard everywhere. So
right.
What's going to be the next thing that we can do to still protect it, but be, aware of.
Let me
what we're doing to our environment. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a rhetorical question, because I don't think that there's a right answer to it. Right. So I apologize in advance for that. But some of this has to come down to where we're producing the waste. And what I mean by that is this is, again, 100 years ago, I was a tech manager. When I first was a tech manager and we first started doing our upgrades and our installs, we would take all the boxes and everything to the room that we were upgrading, right? So you could tell which rooms we were upgrading. Let's just put it that way, right? You would walk down the hall of our university. You could tell which ones that Albright and his team were working in, because there was boxes everywhere. And when we were done, we would stack them outside the room, and you could go down and you could see that. Then we started learning better ways to do things. And integrators have also, part of the Apex program from Infocom includes the understanding that you're going to put together your racks and put things together in your shop and test them there, right? What that does, in addition to doing all sorts of things, like making sure that you don't have equipment that's DOA, that you can test the code, all that other stuff, you're also reducing on-site waste for the client. Doesn't mean it doesn't go away, right? And we can talk about that in a second. But some of this is just doing best practices for your client and for your team to make the racks in your office, make the racks in your warehouse, test everything, and then we can have a conversation, because then it's a little bit easier, in my opinion, to have the waste pickup in one location, that being your office, your warehouse, because then you can have conversations with your local recyclers and say, you know what, I have plastic, I have styrofoam, and I have cardboard. Here are the pallets of each. What do we do with these?
Yeah, I think having one central location, many times you go to a customer site, and if you're stacking stuff out the door, you don't even know where to take it, right? So
yeah.
Or there may not even be those different bins or stacks to put it in. Yeah. But when you're an integrator and you're able to rack everything up at your shop, and then be able to talk to your own waste community and learn how they want things stacked or put in separate bins, et cetera. Where I live, it's all about recycle, right? So and there are some states that I go, just even consumer recycle, where it's like what? I mean, I can't even put my bottle in the trash, but they're like, yeah, that's what we do here. I'm like, what? So some states don't even, I mean, it's just not even on their radar.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is region specific. I mean, every region kind of does their own thing right now, and there are certain ones that they're very conscious, ego friendly, recycle everything, and others that are just throwing everything away and it doesn't matter to them really. So yeah, I totally agree with that region specifically.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, that is going to do it for us for this week. Thank you both so much. Miss Corey Schaefer from QSC. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for having me. And if anyone out there wants to find me, you can find me on all the socials. So Twitter, Corey Schaefer on Twitter, and Corey Schaefer on LinkedIn.
All right, very good. Mr. Whipke, thank you, sir, so much. How do people get a hold of you or USAV?
You can find me on LinkedIn as well. I'm also on Twitter, at the Duke of Music on Twitter, Patrick Whipke on LinkedIn, and you can find us. Our website is usavgroup.net.
Very good. I love Patrick's handle. It's just fun. So for me, on the Twitters, don't follow me because at this point in the football season, I am grousing every single week the fact that the Bears are the Bears. But go by the website if you would, please, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others while you're there. Please check out our supporter section. These are the folks who help us financially and help us bring you AV Week and Resi Week. And in less than 100 days, ISE 2020. Last time.
Wow.
Yeah, isn't that crazy? Less than 100 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and QSC is one of those, and we thank them for their support. So, also this week, this post on Monday, the 11th. So, happy Veterans Day for those of you who have served. We thank you for your service. This Wednesday, we're having our last webinar of the year, talking about digital signage data and how the data that we do and can and should collect can help create some pretty unique dynamic content. So check that out on Wednesday. So all that and more at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. That's all the time we have for AV